Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 8th of October. So we had our gap down here that really caught fire early, got us right back to what we were looking at was a Delta V reversal with the expectation that you would continue to push forward through there. But intraday turmoil caused a bit of a sell-off that's now been brought back up here in the post-market. Shakeout started a nice decent return off of this sharp incline, but you get that within a lot of short overall broader declines where you'll get a steep decline fast, a violent pullback up before it starts to fall back down again, which would be your classic ABC pattern that you would look for on the reverse side to go upward. So it works the same way going down. Critical juncture here as we reach the cyan green meeting point. Sort of a winner-take-all situation here because I think a rejection at this particular point of green lower and cyan up is going to start the next leg down, and or in this particular case you also have a tough one because you don't have any steel reset. So most of the time these kinds of pushes back up don't tend to have extraordinary legs. Obviously we can keep following our red DOC. It's looking pretty strong at this particular point. So the buy is still at this particular point with this setup is definitely more bullish than not, but still within a broader downtrend. And our dip below the red line, last one was this bar right here, which means even if we're not going to do the wick portion of it, we're still expecting to move somewhere back down towards that 2870 range, probably a little bit more than that. NQ standpoint, much stronger here. You already had the DOC red above, green was already crossing, so if that maintains itself through the day, that will be a much clearer indication that a much more bullish push is underway. From a euro standpoint, holding up pretty well despite all of the trauma talk, and that's mostly because US is still back and forth as to exactly what's going on from the political scene. Seems like there's the continuation to push towards the impeachment. That is going to still cause a little bit of nerves market-wise, though I don't believe many people are convinced yet that anything beyond that would happen. But it's paralyzed the government. That actually tends to be good for the markets just because nothing new gets passed, which means status quo, and it's pretty easy to do business in status quo. The unknown that we talked about, though, was the potential for a recession due to people freezing, which is a good likelihood anyway going into the election year, regardless. So from this euro standpoint, we're really looking for a pushback over that 110 range. This is kind of precarious for them because this was already a significant break of the previous lows, and coming off of this initial dip, it's building up and we're back above 13.5 here from a DOC standpoint, so that it should be enough. But again, you know, this is that problem with that no steel reset. You really need to see the steel rise back above 13.5 to get a real strong push that's going to bring it forward. So we'll look for a little more malaise there. Oil maintaining the range, that's critical for it because a break below that would really signal there could be potential growth issues out there that are brewing. And from a gold standpoint, it's caught in the same range as well, and it's still decent looking. We were just in that modest weak period and got the nice little buy that came down at the bottom. It's sort of softened out because we got a quasi rejection here of the steel, not the steel, but the cyan rising, green rejection to the lower side, and if the steel crosses below, that would be a clear indication we're coming right back to retest the dip below the red line right down here, that 137 range. Through the magic of TV, we flip over here to the 5K at the start of the gap down that took place right here, cleared out all those stops, wiped out the positive extremes. We did have a dip below the red line here that was, well, if we take a look at what the actual number is from that open period, we get an idea that we're going to be somewhere in this 2930 range. So that's something to look forward to. Of course, we didn't get a reset coming back to it. What we ended up having was a little bit of flat. We popped up, We were in the broad short here where we've had this extended run of DOC steel above cyan and obviously well below everything else. But then you get to cross over to the green after having made, a new peak from your DOC red. Steel crosses below, orange comes above. That's my signal, says, okay, I'm looking for it to decline. We were within rising gold, but it has started to level out. Usually you don't start to get that decline until you get the Azure meeting. So this is one of those where you can actually wait to that, but I thought this was pretty clean as far as having everything crossing at the same time, which I really like. And turned out to be the right call because we then decayed all the way down. And we got the primary signal here with the crossover of green, orange below, steel crossing above. So all the things you're looking for, except for the fact we didn't have a steel reset of coming from below the red back above. And this lovely dip below the red line, so likelihood of that low coming at some point. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen right away. We're just got to look for the signal on it. A little bit later for the crossover would be the DOC red moving above negative 13.5, which that's why the dotted line versus the yellow line. Relative preference on those, you're going to get an earlier here in most of the runs. This is going to show a little bit more strength so that you're not getting one of those that just starts and then just completely falls apart instantly. And then you got to have the green crossing over. And once it does that, as long as your DOC red is continuing to rise, in this particular case it was, even as the, we actually even had cyan below red. Even when you had this relative DOC spread, it's not so great because you're not getting any of the power that comes from, well, number one of those resets of the steel, as well as a fading of DOC red at this particular point. And even if you just set where your break even is from one of those, depending on where you wanted to enter any of these, you can have break even plus and still be below that 50% line, in which case once that actually triggered, you would just be riding ABM kind of construct. And then we came all the way across. We had a couple of little cyan pops above, but we were still having steel remaining quite below. And then it finally peaked up above right here, closed back down again, and we sort of stayed underneath for a while until it sort of broke clear right up here where this BK's popped in. That was the earliest set because we actually had a rollover of shakeout at this particular point. So we made the higher high. We were relatively even from a histogram standpoint. Then it was just a matter of gotta wait it out. I like that it happened as we got right here, that 2952 range. Looked pretty clean, and then it was a matter of riding that one. Wasn't expecting a whole lot because again you had the steel coming from underneath here. There was no dramatic move. And then sure enough we got a turnaround buy. It came pretty quickly right after it, and that's not surprising, which was kind of frustrating a little bit because I was really expecting the fill back of the dip below the red line over here, so that wasn't quite taking place. And then we actually made another dip below the red line here, giving us another target range to look for. And then we ended up with the beautiful DOC spread coming a little late after the steel cross back over here, and certainly hadn't crossed above, but well within the range, particularly when we're coming from the peak move. And that one has led to the most significant move. And actually, if we put that horizontal in right about there, we could slide back and then see which ones it actually satisfies. Later dip gets you right into about this setup, which was exactly where we were looking to go, right in between there, that 80% range. Still trying to perfect that language for how those lines come through. Post-market, we dipped a little bit more to fill in the last bit of the range, and so that just completely cleared it in post-market by the time we got the dip coming all the way down. And what was interesting with this one is, again, you have the same situation. Here's the dip below the red line, peak buy configuration. Have my little marker right there. This coming from very low, and look at the disjointed nature of this. So the steel crosses back over here. You don't get any support from your orange movement or anything like that. Even when you get the green crossover that happens here, orange still hasn't moved below red. Now you get steel above 13.5, which pushes you all the way over to here. You know this is going to be short-lived. So this is just one of those where I'm looking for the split crossover and say goodnight kind of configuration. You can wait until you get the steel confirm crossing over. That happens right here. The only problem with that is you're starting to get close to what your target is, which is just back to the 0 point, which comes pretty quick right there, and then gives kind of a soft signal. This sort of looks like a P2 potential pivot when it happens, but again, you're looking at another one of these no steel resets, and you did make the new low, so at least at that point you've covered, so at least that's a good spot from that configuration. It gets a little bit weak again before putting in the buy right pretty close to the same area that's led to this move that's taken us back up above the previous range. So we're just right back in to the middle sections of it, and it's just been good because when you start adding up all these points, this is 45, 50 point day without really having to work that hard at it. So you gotta love it when those take place. I will certainly put up any of these if they're relevant going forward. It's always good to be able to see some of these configurations, and as I adapt the paint bars to match it perfectly, we have much more conservative readings with the paint bars as it comes in at this particular point. So I'm just trying to bridge that gap between them all so everything is seamless for all of you. It makes it easy. As always, trade well though. We'll talk to you later.